Hello everyone, welcome. This is Pamela Ursid with Black Swan Yoga Houston, and we're about to break down the headstand. So what exactly is the headstand? The headstand is an inversion which requires a lot of abdominal work and pelvic floor action. Now the headstand considered an inversion because of the amount of blood flow that drives down in towards the head requires a good amount of time to be sustained in order to get the benefits of the pose. Iyengar in his book Light on Yoga says that ideally you should spend around 5 minutes in the headstand to feel the benefit of the blood flow running back as a cleansing method. Now, there's a couple of things that you should review before getting into the headstand, like if you have any glaucoma issues, any neck issues, or upper back issues, you should maybe step off from practicing the headstand for a little bit until you feel 100% or 110% healthy in order to start practicing the benefits of the headstand. Think about the headstand as a way of meditating. Actually, in old times or old scriptures, like in the Ramayana, which is a very old Indian epic, it is said that part of their sacrifice or part of their rituals was to hold headstand for years. So there is an element of spirituality to the pose, and also in modern times, there is an element of meditation through the pose. Some teachers recommend that you even chant a prayer or a mantra of your own, or something that you believe in order to just achieve that more stable pose or stable position through the pose. So without further ado, let's get on the physical aspect of this pose. All right, guys, let's get into it. I'll be right over there and we can both together watch the demo at the same time. The drills. The first one we're gonna look at is knee to elbows or knee to upper arms. You really want to focus on pressing the lower back down, mid-ribs in, shoulder blades expanded out towards the sides, which is the same action that you want to do when you're actually in the headstand. Now let's pause it here for just a moment. One thing that you really want to focus on is you can't really appreciate it so much here. My elbows are a little bit splayed wide, but you ideally want to keep them elbows in line with the armpits. So you have to be mindful of that even when going into the actual position of the headstand. Now, gravity and the floor are helping me create that openness through the upper back, which is the one that we want to educate when actually moving into the headstand. Now, this particular drill I'm doing with the hands behind the back of my head, so I educate where my hands are going to go behind the back edge of the skull. Now, when you're bringing one knee in and extending the leg and bringing the other in, you want to focus on really not opening the legs out and try to do the best you can to just bring them in. That internal rotation of the thighs moving from the out in, is key in order to support the pose when actually getting into it. And so now we're going to move into both knees in towards the abdomen, or both knees in towards the elbows. And you want to do the same thing, focusing on just pressing the thighs together the best you can for the pelvic floor to run from in between the legs to the crown of the head to keep the length of the spine, the ribs pulling in. And then when you move into both legged, it's that pike action. Now, let's pause it here for just a moment. As it goes down, pause right there. Good. Now, you really want to notice the mid-back. Ribs should be pulling in so you don't arch like so. And you feel that the lower abdomen has to fire up to get the legs a little bit lower. Now that drill will educate you for the pike. So be very mindful when practicing this one. You really want to work into keeping, again, the thighs rolling in. It will take a little bit of practice, but it will be worth it. So as we look into it, you see that every time I'm trying to bring my toes a little bit closer to the face just to educate that pike and get a little bit stronger there. All right, so now we move on into having the tripod hand position. I'm gonna pause it right here for just a moment. It's same exercise, one knee to upper arm, and then switch, extend. It's very good. Again, we're just changing the hand position in order to practice the other variation, educate the arms. Now here, my hands are a little bit too far towards my ear. Ideally, I want to have them a little bit higher just because, again, I'm trying to create that almost, I'm not going to specifically say 90-degree angle, but you do want to work with the wrist in line with the elbow, elbow in line with the shoulder. So be mindful of that. You're going to notice that magically I appeared with a strap on my arms, and that is just so you educate your arms. So you can definitely have something similar, wrapping up your arms, making sure that when you're measuring yourself, that you can see that your elbows are in line with your shoulders. And we're basically repeating the same drills that we did when we were interlacing the fingers. So the core activation and the leg activation is going to be the same thing as the other bind. We're just, again, using the support of the strap. We continue using the strap, and then you can see I've raised my hands a little bit more. We're quickly moving into the downward dogs. Now, this is key, and I'm gonna pause it right there. Good. So, that's where you have to focus on wrapping the thigh in rather than going with the thigh out towards the upper arm. And you might appreciate that at some point I might be demoing the wrong way to do it. If you're like, I don't know what you mean. That is where I'm like, no ma'am. And then we go back into downward facing dog. So again, that position of the leg, that wrapping of the thigh from the outside in educates the pelvic floor to help you bring the legs in the headstand. And that's when you're in your downward facing dog and they cue lift your leg, bring the knee into the nose or knee into the elbow, try to really bring the kneecap towards the elbow rather than the thigh towards the elbow, if that makes any sense. Let's move forward to the forearm dips. Now, these can be a beast sometimes, and you can do one arm and then the other. Here, I'm doing both at the same time. So what this does is, I'm pausing it right there, is it educates the rotation of the arms. You want to rotate from the outside in when going down and dipping in order to create strength on the muscles that surround the upper back, from the serratus muscle that goes all the way to the front, from the rhomboids, and all the muscles that are coming a little bit higher up here. So again, you really want to educate those muscles to help you move the shoulder blades down and out, as if the shoulder blades were about to just wrap the front side of the body, to use the most of the upper arms to push the head away from the ground, which is ironic. All right, so the sustaining of the plank. As you can see, I'm right here pushing belly up and in, making sure that the shoulders are in line with the hips, hips in line with the heels, heels on top of the toes, spreading the fingers wide. It looks like my heart is sinking in. I'm trying to expand the collarbones out, crown of the head in line with the heels. Now, as I'm sustaining the high plank, and you know, sometimes you just want to dip down. We tend to do that when we get tired. It's better that we lower down, or pausing it right here, we just start giving up on the upper arms. So when you feel that, that means you might be pulling a lot or putting a lot of weight on the upper arms. What you want to do is press to the center of the palm, so that can send energy to the abdomen, and press the abdomen up and in, so you can feel now that longitude or that length of the whole body through the headstand, making sure that, again, you're not just depending on a certain limb or a pair of limbs, that you're using the whole body to activate the line from crown to heel to push into your high plank. So sustaining your high plank will always be a good type of exercise to move forward into your headstand. Now moving into the forearm plank and dipping down and lifting up. Pause it right there. So one thing that you want to focus on when moving into it is not moving from side to side when going from down to up. try to really keep the whole body static. So again, you're not just depending on dropping down on the limbs, you're using the whole torso to maintain the position to go up and down. So let's keep it going. Now here I'm trying to get into the dolphin, and in just a couple seconds I'm like, yeah, let's take that distance first. This is a really good way to notice the distance of your shoulders in order for you to know how far your elbows should go. You don't want to go too far wide, you don't want to go too close to narrow, just enough that you have that space for the upper arm to push away. Now these drills that bring knee to armpit are really good in order to just heat up the core a little bit more, pausing it there, right there where the knee is coming into the armpit. That space is where you need to educate a little bit more the inner thigh to roll in, because those are the movements that tend to open up the leg because you feel there's no space in the core. That's where the core comes in. You really need to push from the elbow to the armpit to make space for the leg to wrap in, come into the armpit. So when you're doing the knee to armpits, be mindful on that yes, the leg, the thigh is activating, rolling in, but the core is doing probably 70% of the work to make the leg find the space to do all of that. And then we keep moving forward into shifting forward and back in the dolphin. Now pausing it right here. When you're moving forward, you don't want to go too far where the shoulders are going all the way beyond the elbows. You kind of stop slightly where the shoulders meet the elbows to protect the joints and also feel that the triceps are strengthening. You not only want to lengthen the triceps, you also want to strengthen them because they're going to push the ground away. So even though the headstand is called headstand because the head is on the ground, you still want to feel almost like a zero gravity effect when pushing the ground away from the center of the head. We're going to discuss that later when we see the demo of the headstand. So the next one is sustaining just the forearm plank. And again, if you need to take the distance of your arms, you can do that again before getting into the pose. If you already did, no need. And then making sure that the belly like that is not sagging down. Yeah, ma'am, no, good. And then you push back up, good. Now you don't want to go too far up either. You just want to find that center where you feel that the core is balancing the whole body weight. So going too low can damage the lower back. Going too far up, you're not really engaging as much. Then a child's pose is always very well recommended after those poses. All right, let's now move into the supported headstand. All right, guys, first things first, you need to measure your shoulders before you place the crown of the head down into the ground. Now, again, the crown of the head is the flattest part behind. You don't want to go into the too far front. You want to go into the back. Once you feel you have the flattest part of the head down, you start walking in your feet. Now, we're going to do one leg in first and then the other. And making sure that the abdomen is compressing in so the line that connects the pelvic floor expands all the way. So as I'm prepping myself to not jump, but pull the legs in with the core, maybe if you need a pause right there for a second, personally do. Don't rush it, then start lengthening the legs very softly. You can also do one leg and then the other first. Trying to balance it out. Now, don't go too far back where I swung there onto my lower back. If you go too far forward, you might just come back where you came from. Trying to save it there so you work with your abdomen as you lengthen the whole spine. You come out of the pose the same way that you came in, one knee in, one, and then the other one towards the abdomen, and you start lowering down as softly as you can. Child's pose it as soon as you're done. I'm going to pause it right here. Now, every time that you come out of your headstand, you want to do a child's pose, so be very mindful on how the blood flow wants to run back into the body, especially if you did sustain the pose for more than 3 minutes. You want to make sure that everything comes back into its place normally. Now let's review from another angle the movement of the shoulder blades in order to press the ground with your upper arms. So this is what I mean when making space for the neck by pressing through the forearms. Now notice what happens. There you go, pausing it right there. See how my neck is completely disappeared? So you want to make sure that you don't do that when you start walking your feet in. If that is the case, walk your feet out. Really press the shoulder blades out and towards the front of the heart so you have space for the whole neck. And now we're moving into the other side on a profile so you can see now what it feels like to place the forehead versus the crown and how you kind of, there you go, scooch it in. So you now notice how the shoulders are over the elbows. As I'm walking in, they come a little bit too far back. See, it feels so wrong. There you go. Doesn't feel too good when you disappear the neck, you crunch it in. You want to make sure that the neck has its full length with its natural curvature. So let's push play, pushing out. There you go, finding the stacking as you walk in the legs. That is core there to make space for the neck. So take as much time as needed in order to achieve that. Keep doing your drills, then child's pose it. There we go. All right, guys, now moving into the same supported headstand, but now bringing both legs in, making sure crown of the head is down. You took your distance on your arms for your shoulders to be in line with the elbows. And as you're walking in, pausing right there as I'm coming up. Yes. So no jumping, all of the compression of the abdomen. Notice how my spine is at the moment of my legs coming in. It's long. It's not rounded. It's not pushing my neck. That is pure lower abdominal muscles and the pelvic floor elongating my spine. So the drills will get you closer to that for sure. Then as you bring the legs in, very softly start bringing them up with no rush. And you might see my spine is misaligned a little bit there as I'm trying to find the center to just elongate my front side, back side, pushing from the back of my head in order to sink my arms down. And then the same way that I came into the pose, I'm coming down. Knees in, keep pressing abdomen, and then child's pose. Now, same supported headstand, but this time we're breaking down the pike. So as I'm coming down, pressing again, head down. I don't need to take my distance anymore. I kind of already got it by then. And if you're avid, then you just get into it. Walking my legs in, pausing it right there in the moment. There we go. So when coming or piking up with both legs, again, more weight, more core work. We already did the drills or focus on the drills that help you get there quickly. Now again, notice my spine. Look at my spine. As I'm bringing my legs in the pike, my spine is elongated because my abdominal muscles and my pelvic floor are supporting each other. So as I'm pressing my abdomen in, again, my pelvic floor that runs from in between my legs to my crown expands all the way up to keep the length and help my abdomen pull my legs up. So as I'm getting in there, find the line where the heels stack upon the hips, hips over the shoulders. Keep pressing shoulder blades away and in towards the heart. Keeping the natural curvature of the neck, always pressing through the crown. And then slowly coming down the same way that you came into the pose. And as you softly land, always child's pose. All right, guys, now we're looking at from the perspective of the wide forward fold. So if you already have your measurement down, no need to, just press forearms down, making sure elbows over the shoulders. And now that forward fold requires a lot of hamstring flexibility and abdominal work in order to compress the belly. As I'm tippy-toeing, I'm very mindfully pressing up, and I'm gonna pause it right there. So when we do straddles, it can become a little bit more approachable for the core to help lift the legs, especially because the quads have more space. The legs have more space to just fly up. Same thing, you don't want to jump. You want to use the lower part of the abdomen to help the legs spread out. Once we start wanting them to close in, that's when we start losing a little bit of the balance because the legs are trying to find the line. So take it slow. If you need to stay on the straddle for a little bit to let the body get used to the inversion, stay there. And as I'm coming up, now I'm trying to find the energy of my pelvic floor that wraps my thighs in together. Good. Finding the center. I'm a little bit tilted to his side. Yeah, no judgment, just trying to find the line in order to now go down super softly. Same, pressing navel up and in, letting the tippy toes be the first thing that touch the ground, and super softly letting go of the back of the head, ideally child's pose. Alright guys, so the tripod headstand is important to notice where the crown of the head is, same like the other one, where the hands are in relationship to the head, making sure that the elbows aren't splaying out as I show here, nor too close to the head. A good rule of thumb is that you're able to see a little bit of the index, or the middle finger rather, and as you're walking in, again, making sure that the spine is completely erect as you bring one knee in, and then the other, you can definitely use your upper arms as shelves, but not depend on them. Making sure that the core is the one helping you lengthen one leg and then the other one. So as you're coming up, same principles as the supported headstand in regards to the abdomen, the legs, the pelvic floor. Again, it's expansive in order to find that nice line from crown to heel. And when you're coming down the same way that you did one knee in, then the other, and softly releasing into your child's pose as soon as you're done. Let's get closer on a profile to what not to do. So again, you don't want the forehead down before lifting the knees away. You want to make sure that the crown of the head is down. Look at the shoulders and the elbows stacked over the wrist. I'm accommodating myself just to make sure that I don't lift before I'm not feeling okay. And again, see that movement? You don't want, again, the neck crunching in like that. Make space, shoot the shoulders away. There you go. And then you child's pose it. Now let's get into the tripod headstand with both knees coming into the abdomen. Same thing. Flattest part of the head down. You're able to see the tip of the middle finger, compressing the abdomen to bring both thighs in. My thighs are pressing my legs like one, and then finding the line. Now you're sinking the hands into the mat strongly in order to release any tension on the neck, even though the crown of the head is slightly touching the ground. Then as you're coming down, same way that you came in, compressing the abdomen, child's posing it. Now let's look at the pike. Same with the crown, same with the hands. Take your time before getting into the pose. As you stack your hips over your shoulders, you shoot the shoulder blades away, then you lengthen the legs as you start lifting them up with no jumping. Everything is compression of the abdomen as you find your line. And once you've found it and you spent the amount of time you need in your headstand, you softly start coming down. There you go. Again, piking down, pressing the navel up and in. That shifts my hips a little bit towards my shoulder blades, and then I child's pose it. Now let's look at it from the straddle. Same thing. Make sure that your hands are right in line with the shoulders. See how I walk them in a little bit before getting into it. Crown of my head down, shifting the weight into the tippy toes as I stack my hips, not letting the shoulders coming and scrunching my neck, pushing up, and then letting the straddle bring my legs together with the same abdominal and pelvic floor action as we discussed on the supported headstand. Now as I'm finding my lines, I spread my legs, create support from my hands, keep pushing down, even the legs are coming down, and I lower down. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around for this quick tutorial on how to get into the headstand. We reviewed the supported headstand, the tripod headstand, and several drills that can help us get into the many ways to approach the inversion, making sure that before you do, you feel at your healthiest from the inside out, so you can evolve through the spiritual practice and the physical practice of yoga. Thank you, guys. Well, that's a wrap.